Hi, and welcome to this week's Wu Wei Wisdom Life Lessons teaching. It's great to be back with you all. This week, we are talking all about insomnia and anxiety and how you can get a much better sleep. Okay, so David, insomnia is a huge problem for a lot of people, and it really affects our quality of life. What are the most common complaints you have when working with clients on this issue?
I think that's important to stress at the beginning. We're focusing on this teaching the link between emotions, unbalanced emotions, and sleeping. So if you are suffering from sleep conditions, just check with your physician and make sure that nothing is seriously happening and you can get an all clear from them. But if you believe it's emotionally linked, then perhaps this teaching will help you as well. So the two main issues that I get with my clients are, first of all, the inability to go to sleep. So they'll go to sleep and they'll try and go to sleep, and their mind is racing, going round and around and around, and they can't focus on getting to sleep, and they get stuck on that circle. And the second one is they go to sleep very easily, and then they wake up, and then they can't get back to sleep. I call that second one the 3 a.m. mind.
Okay, and I guess in both of those types of sleep pattern difficulties or insomnia, the mind and the emotions that are connected to the anxiety of not being able to sleep, how bad it's going to make us feel the next day. Is this pattern of insomnia going to go on forever? Is my life going to be ruined? That kind of carousel of despair, as you probably call it, that also feeds into and compounds the problem. So in the examples we're going to be talking about, insomnia is often related to emotional upset and unresolved emotional stuff in our everyday life. But anxiety, because of the lack of sleep, really exacerbates the problem.
That's right. It is like a carousel of despair. So first of all, you're absolutely right. In my experience, it's dealing with unresolved issues. So therefore, the part of your mind that I call the inner child, you may call your subconscious mind or your ego, but hopefully I'll show you why I think the label of the inner child works better, is nearly always involved. So that part of your mind, when you want to go to sleep, particularly if you've got a busy day on the next day, or you've got a lot on, or you're in the middle of a project or something, and it acts just like a child. And if you have children or have had children, have you noticed how they'll come to you when you're at your busiest, when you're least able to address them, because they're needing that attention? And so the part of your mind, your subconscious mind, that I call the inner child, will act in exactly the same way. When you say, I need to really get a good night's sleep tonight, let me go to bed a bit earlier or something, that's when the inner child goes, zing, I need some attention. I need to get your attention. I need you to speak to me.
And that's in a way because we've been able to distract ourselves in the daytime because of, chores, work we've got to do, busyness of our life. When it comes to the evening time, a lot of us have got fewer distractions. That's when, as you say, that part of our mind, all the suppressed stuff, the unresolved stuff, starts to seep out. And we also lose a sense of resolve. We lose, I guess, the self-discipline we may have had in the daytime with our racing thoughts and our racing imagination. Our tiredness means that our defenses are down, and we do lose that self-discipline. So this is why the emotional stuff, the unresolved stuff, really comes into play in the evenings and at night time.
That's so right, Alex. And this is one lesson to learn. when you're going to bed, it is not the time to do the inner child work. It is not the time for the reasons that you've just said. This is probably when you are physically, mentally exhausted. And to engage with the inner child's antics, its swinging emotions, the carousel of despair and the emotional pendulum, it is the worst time for you to do the inner child work. So this inner child resolution work that we try and show you, the reparenting, all of the teachings we've done, this should be done at a time when you're more focused during the day, maybe in the morning or lunchtime, when you're more focused, not when you're tired, worn out, not when you're craving a good night's sleep. Because to do that inner child work then and try and resolve the inner child issues, it just ends up being chaos.
And I guess the lesson here, David, is that we're much better able to, and we should deal with the unresolved issues in the daytime when we are emotionally more fully charged, emotionally more energized, more logical thinking and clear thinking. And that, in a way, if we struggle with getting a good night's sleep, our evening time, those periods of hours, several hours before our bedtime, we should consciously try not to deal with difficult, unresolved issues in our mind.
Yes, so I would really recommend that. That is the time to switch off your social media, for instance. This is the time not to catch up on your emails, on your Facebook, on your WhatsApp. This is the last thing you should be doing. I don't know, an hour, 2 hours before you're going to bed, you should be switching down all of that stuff, and you shouldn't be doing that type of work just before you go to bed, because this is when you're at least able to do this inner child work. And as you said, this should be done during the day, and there should be a routine or a ritual that you're getting yourself ready for a good, peaceful, restful night sleep. It should be like a kind of a program that you're giving yourself. I can't be precise because for everybody it's slightly different, but an hour before your bedtime, an hour and a half, 2 hours before your bedtime, you should be kind of winding yourself down, doing the things you like to do, get in your favorite bed clothes, for instance, read a nice book, listen to some nice music, switch off the news, don't listen to the news or problems before you go to bed. And it's like you've got to find a routine, and there's only really you can do this, but you've got to find a routine that slows everything down. And I would recommend there's obviously meditation, just meditating, finding a calm place, finding the center line. If you look online, we've done what we call a center line meditation. Just bringing yourself, dropping your shoulders, breathing deeply, and just getting ready for that blissful, peaceful sleep. It's the last time you should be looking at your emails, looking at your social media, watching the news on TV, seeing all the problems in the world, thinking about what you're going to do tomorrow. This is the worst time you should be doing it.
And David, I think really the concept of self-responsibility and accountability very much feeds into this issue. We need to recognize that we cannot just go full blast, willy-nilly at our day, take on board all the issues of the world, leave some issues unresolved, exhaust ourselves in other ways, and go crazy in terms of our lifestyle or eating habits or drinking habits, and then expect to sleep or sound like a baby. I don't know whether it's an age thing, sleep becomes a little bit more tricky and more precarious as we get older, but definitely this concept of having a sleep routine, which begins several hours as you lead up to your bedtime, is really important. And as you said, this very much needs to be a personally tailored thing to you and your lifestyle. For me, my sleep routine actually begins in the morning because I have to be super mindful of not drinking too much caffeine or not drinking caffeine beyond a certain time mid-morning. Otherwise, I'm still overstimulated come nighttime. And also, I'm very mindful about how much alcohol I drink. I very rarely drink alcohol because, again, that really messes up my sleep. So that's something I'm generally very mindful of in terms of my lifestyle as a form of self-care, which also includes being mindful of how I deal with unresolved issues, emotions, inner child work in my mind, and what part of the day I deal with that in.
That's right, Alex. And that's why I said at the beginning of this, we're focusing just on the emotional side and trying to give you some tips and some techniques to do on that. But you brought in some really important kind of things to think about. Caffeine, alcohol, smoking. Are you doing that, and what timers are you doing that? And does that help you with your routine of getting ready for bed? And then you brought in something very important. As we get older, I do believe we need less sleep. And so being aware of what sleep you actually need. It always amazes me when I looked at my children and teenagers, they sleep all the time, but as you get older, perhaps you need less sleep and perhaps you can adjust your time clocks and get that right. That's why it's such a big subject. It sounds an easy subject, but it's such a big subject. And it's a subject that you have to think about that suits you. But the two things you said, age related is important. Definitely alcohol, caffeine, what you're drinking, what you're eating, so you're not up all night going to the loo. That's very important as well. And so all of these things kind of come together to make this sleep. Think about it very seriously. And that's why I thought it'd be a good idea to do this teaching. So we think about it more seriously because, Alex, if we don't get a good night's sleep, it really affects our day the following day. And then we're on the carousel because now we're overtired. Now we're over worried. Now we're looking at the evening and thinking, oh, I'm not going to be able to sleep tonight. And then we build up that carousel.
I know. And it becomes almost like bedtime becomes a point of dread. Yes. For our ego, because we associate it with struggle and difficulty, and we associate it with negative consequences like feeling tired and grotty all the next day. David, I want to ask you, so we've talked about the issue of how to make it easier, more conducive to getting off to sleep a bit easier, a bit more naturally, without distractions, without too much caffeine stimulation, without overcrowding our mind with emotional things. But if we, and you mentioned this 3 a.m. mind, for those people who don't necessarily struggle to get off to sleep, but they wake up at 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning at inappropriate time, they haven't had their decent quota of sleep, and then they can't get back to sleep. For those people, it's often because their mind is busy, active, chatting, and there is unresolved stuff going on. So I'm wondering, if we don't deal with the stuff in the evening, like you say, surely then we're just squashing that down, and then that's what wakes us up in the middle of the night.
Yes, I'm saying don't deal with the inner child workers in the evening. Do it during the day.
Okay.
Do it during the day. Some people like to do it first thing on the morning. They think that's that they're brightest and their best. But any time during the day. But don't do it in the evening before you're going to bed, because you're activating that inner child and you're bringing up all of the unresolved issues. So if I can move on to this 3 a.m. mind, for me, this is what when I was practicing Chinese medicine and acupuncture, I would say this was the number one thing that people used to come and bring to me, that they had no problem in going to sleep. In fact, they were dog tired and they would probably go to sleep just like dropping a lie. But then they would suddenly wake up around 2 or 3 o'clock, as in the morning, and then do you think they can go to sleep? And then you hear the inner child in full blast. And I often say, when have you ever woken up at 2 or 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, in the middle of the night, and that inner voice is saying, Aren't you doing well? Don't you look great? Tomorrow's going to be a great day. My goodness, you're going to be so successful you won't believe it. It never says that. It says the opposite. Critical, finding fault, finding problems, laying out problems. It's not going to go well. It's all going to go wrong. You won't be able to do it. You won't be able to cope. You're not good enough. You're unlovable. You're unworthy. And this is the voice. If you're ever unsure what Alex and I are talking about when we're talking about the inner child, that part of your mind, that subconscious part of your mind that focuses on the negative talk, listen to that 3 a.m. mind. I think most of us have had it at some time in our life. Unfortunately, some of my clients have it virtually nightly. And this is the inner child hanging on to the unresolved issues and bringing them forward. Now, Chinese medicine has got a very interesting take on this. They call it the qi clock.
Mm-hmm.
I think I've spoken to you about this before. Qi is this life force, this universal energy. And in Chinese medicine, we believe it travels around the body on a 24-hour clock. And between 2 and 4 o'clock in the morning, it's more in the heart center. So these are the times when unresolved emotional issues will come bubbling up, and they'll almost wake you up with a start. Have you had that? It's almost like you wake up and it's like you look at the clock, you think 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, you're joking. It's almost like I could get up, but you're still tired. You're physically tired. And this would give you a real strong signal that please have a look at our related teachings about your inner child work, about the emotional, unresolved issues, maybe going back to childhood, that you need to work on and get this much smoother and much calmer. So this need to get your attention, because that's what the mind is doing. It's waking you up and getting your attention to go through these issues at the worst possible time. This is when everything seems like a catastrophe, and everything that, say you're going for an interview the following day, my goodness, this is like the walking into the jaws of death, that the 3 a.m. mind will make it. And this makes then the next day you wake up, you're tired, you're already full of negativity, and you go into the interview not giving your best.
I know. I mean, I have to say, having had nights of 3 a.m. mind in my experience, it is like some kind of special sweet torture, that, because it's almost like when, you wake up, you're awake for a few hours, you most often get back to sleep, but it seems like you haven't. When you wake up in the morning, it seems like you've had no sleep, but normally you do have some sleep. But to wake up in the morning, it's almost like everything automatically feels slightly better than it did at 3 o'clock in the morning, because it's you're in the blackest, darkest, most demon-like place of your mind at that time in the morning, where logic, rationale, reasoning just goes completely out the window. And I don't, I can laugh about this now because I have been in that place, but I know it's the most awful, horrific experience when you're lying awake. And I think one of the hardest things, and what makes it worse, is we get so frustrated with ourselves. We have no compassion for ourselves. We just get wound up and frustrated and angry about, why am I waking up? I really desperately need sleep. I really desperately don't want to be in this position. It's hopeless. And that negative self-talk and lack of self-compassion at 3 o'clock in the morning just totally inflames the situation, David.
It does. And I'm smiling a little bit because some of the feedback we get when we do the inner child work, it's the paradox of the inner child. And this is definitely when you'll see the paradox of the inner child. The inner child will wake you, create all these monsters and negative thoughts, and then criticize you for not sleeping and being too tired the next day. So it's this paradox that gets people confused about the inner child. It will do something, and then what it's doing, it'll blame you because it's doing it. That's why this inner child work that we talk about so often in our teachings, this part of the mind that's against our spirituality, it's like contra to what we should be. We are spiritual beings that should be living, sleeping, walking, living, having relationship in harmony and balance. That's the natural way, I would say. That's the way of the Tao. That's how we should be living. And if you do not resolve these issues, you set up a kind of a counter force. It's like a tug of war inside of you. And now this part of your mind that's really fighting and struggling with these issues that badly need resolving, it almost sets up to be your enemy. Actually, it's a scared little child that's craving your attention, that's craving for someone to hold them and to guide them, to hold their hand. But don't do it at 3 a.m. in the morning. This is why you have to set a time. I would call it a meditation period. It only needs to be 10, 15, 20 minutes, but you should do it every day and resolve these issues which were generated in your childhood. Maybe for all the things we spoke about, I won't go through all the things. You can look at the playlist, so many things. But one of those will, or two or three of those will relate to you, and you have to resolve those issues. And then you'll find the kind of the domino effect is sleep starts to get better. The child is more content, more peaceful, more in their flow, because that's what Wu Wei means. Wu Wei wisdom, being in your flow. And this is really why we do these teachings, because this is your natural state. This is how you should be living and sleeping.
And so, David, totally take your point about doing the work in the daytime, this inner child work, unresolved issues work, stuff to do with the 3 lies we talk about, our beliefs that we're not lovable, we're not good enough, we can't cope, unresolved issues relating to the past, injustices, unfairnesses, whatever it is that is still bubbling away in our psyche. Self-doubt at night, we need to deal with in the daytime. But are there any techniques that you recommend to your clients as well for what to do if they do wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning or 2 o'clock in the morning, just to kind of help ease the situation?
Yes. Again, it's very personal to you, so I'm just going to give you some suggestions. The thing you don't do is open up your emails. Don't look at your social media. Don't do that. Do something like, if you're reading a book, perhaps you could open a book. Perhaps if you're doing something more constructive, learning a language, learning something, do something that's away from what's going on in your normal life. So I've got a client who didn't learn a language, but helped to learn a language in that time, because you'll be amazed at when you put your mind onto something else, the inner child goes quiet. Here's something else that really worked for a client. They used to listen to an audio book. It's Audible, it's an Amazon company. So they would put an audio book on and just lie down and listen to the book. But again, make sure it's about nothing that's critical, just a nice story, pleasant story. And so what you're trying to do is to distract the mind. What you don't do is, as I say, open up your emails, look at social media. You do not get up and go to the fridge and have sugary drinks or sugary food, because that would just stimulate. Alex talked about alcohol and caffeine. Also, sugary food and drink will create a stimulation. So just have a glass of water, put an audio book on, read a book that's neutral, that's reading a language or learning a new skill or something that's good that you would like. And that distracts the inner child. But then you must put some time during the day. Again, you're not looking at hours, you're looking at the minimum, I would say, is 10 minutes. The maximum is no more than half an hour. When you're doing some of the inner child work, and you can use our videos, you can use our meditations to do this work. But I want to jump back to one thing we said a little bit earlier, which is, to me, is very important: the preparation for sleep. Lots of people don't think about this. They just think sleep is their birthright. They should have it. They should go to bed, get in the bed clothes, and just go to sleep. And really, you've got to have that preparation. Again, it's up to you. Half an hour, an hour and a half before you go to bed, start that routine. And one thing you may think about, you may have heard the word feng shui, is how is your bedroom set out? Is it a comfortable environment? Is it peaceful? And perhaps you, because Alex does feng shui, perhaps you can give us some tips.
So the most, I guess, high level, most powerful feng shui principles for the bedroom are that the bedroom should be clutter free. I mean, the idea of feng shui is just creating a good, even, calm, clean energy flow of fresh energy through all the rooms in your house or your home. The bedroom is particularly important because we spend so much time there, and that we wouldn't want blocked or stagnant energy in the bedroom. And the number one thing that blocks and stagnates energy, therefore makes it not conducive to a good restful night's sleep, is clutter. So clutter under the bed, clutter on top of the wardrobe, clutter, mess and junk inside the wardrobe or inside the drawers or on the tabletops. To minimize and streamline and remove clutter is absolutely the first thing. The second thing is to do with light and ventilation. Having fresh air and natural ventilation in the bedroom. So certainly in the daytime, if you can, get some fresh air into the bedroom, leave the windows open at night, or, if it's too cold or you prefer the windows closed at night, that's fine. But ventilate and clear the chi energy out in the daytime with fresh air. And the light situation, for a lot of people who are very light sensitive, if you can have blackout curtains to block out the light. In Asia, where, the sunlight is particularly strong, blackout curtains are a kind of a norm. But I think blackout curtains really work a treat. Except, again, this is a personal thing. If you want to wake up with the morning light, then don't have blackout curtains. And then there are other more kind of smaller details which are also helpful, like the positioning of the bed. In feng shui, it's discouraged having the foot of the bed facing towards the doorway. Things like not having big mirrors facing towards the bed at night. So there's all sorts of nuances, making sure you have a solid headboard and the back of the bed is solidly against the wall. But if you can only do two or three things, it would be to declutter, make sure everything is clutter-free, organized, fresh and clean. So that includes clean, fresh bed linen, natural ventilation, and managing the light in the bedroom. They're the top feng shui tips, which will definitely create a more conducive environment for a good night's sleep.
And it's that word environment, you see. It's creating an environment when you start to thinking of your bedroom and your sleep as a blessing, as a haven, somewhere where you can go and kind of get away from the day, what's going on, the noise and the busyness. And this is your sacred little place. And I know, and maybe pretty soon we're going to do some sleep meditation
next week. Even
is it next week? Okay, yeah. Great. I wasn't
sure. Sleep meditation for you next week.
I wasn't sure when we were going to do it. So find someone's voice that you like. If you don't like my voice, find somebody's voice, just to make that place a kind of really place you're almost looking forward to going to and enjoying that peace and that tranquility of you being in that place and going through that process of life. Because as Alex said, we spend so much time of our life sleeping and in the bedroom. Let's make it a wonderful place. And so if you do suffer from sleep, it is a big complex problem. I hope we've given you some ideas that you could approach it from a different way.
Yeah, and I think this concept of environment is, I think it's the overarching message here. Be mindful of your internal environment, what's going on in your mind and how you manage that very mindfully in the ways we talked about. And then second to that is being mindful of your external environment, so the environment of your bedroom, and developing that self-compassion, that self-responsibility to hone a really nice, comfortable pre-bedtime routine for yourself. Those will all help you significantly with any insomnia that you may be struggling with.
And the last thing I'd want to say, just to help you on this process, is don't give yourself the idea that you're going to fix this in one night. Give yourself a few weeks, is even a month of a slow process where you're slowly turning things around and see yourself on this journey of really coming back to finding your balance, your harmony, being peaceful and enjoying your sleep, because you deserve it. You deserve to have a good night's sleep. That's what we all want. So the next day you're up bright, bushy-tailed and ready to get on with your life.
Wonderful. Thank you, David. And so do check out David's new guided sleep meditation, which we're going to be publishing next Saturday for you to help you with this topic. I'll also put links in the show notes to other teachings that will help you with this topic, including our much bigger guided meditation playlist. So if you do wake up at 3:00 in the morning, 2:00 in the morning, or you're struggling to get off to sleep, listening to one of David's free guided meditations on our YouTube channel is one great way to help you calm that internal environment of your mind. I really, really hope you have enjoyed this teaching. Please do let us know and perhaps share it with someone else who you think it may also benefit. David works every week with clients all over the world via Zoom video call on exactly the sort of issues we've talked about today. If you'd like to learn more about David's one-to-one consultations, I will also put a link to those in the show notes as well. And finally, please don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We produce new long-form teachings every Saturday, as well as 2 midweek short snippets of wisdom for you every week. So please do subscribe. It's really important to us. We look forward to sharing with you again very soon. Bye-bye.